In this video, I want to talk to you about restoring your Jing energy through traditional Chinese medicine and the use of tonic herbs. Now, for those of you who do not know, Jing is our primordial or primal energy. It is the energy that makes up all living beings. It is basically the energy that makes up the living body or the biological being that is our body. So in Chinese medicine, there are three primary types of energy. There's Jing, Qi, and Shen. Now, Jing is, like I said, the energy of the body. So it's not to be confused with the energy we cultivate daily through our diet, movement, and breathing, or the energy produced by the spirit, which would be Shen energy. And that's the type of energy that we get through joyful experiences, through a meaningful and fulfilling life. So if you're interested in learning more about these three treasures, these three different energies, I have a video that you can check out over here. You can also click the link below and learn more in detail about Jing, Qi, and Shen. However, again, to quickly summarize, Jing is our primal energy. However, in short, to help you understand this idea of Jing and to put it to perspective, ultimately, body death is the total or complete exhaustion of Jing. So like I said, Jing is really the energy that's keeping our biological being, our body, our genetic entity alive and thriving. And to help you understand, I usually explain it like this. You can become tired on a daily basis, and that is really showing you that, there's a different aspect to our human experience other than just living in this body. For example, you can become tired of your job, or you can get tired of this person, or sick and tired of certain life circumstances. And that just goes to show you that there's a certain energy, a metaphysical or a spiritual energy body that can become exhausted as well. However, being tired is much different than being sleepy. And when we get really sleepy or exhausted or fatigued, we're starting to see or have the experience of a depletion in our Jing. And so this helps us really start to see these differences in these energies. And so on the other hand, when you get a really good night's sleep, you wake up and you feel very vitalized, very refreshed. And this is a good sign that you've cultivated a lot of Qi and you're not dipping into this sort of storehouse of Jing energy that keeps your body alive and functioning on a daily basis. So in Chinese medicine, strong Jing is attributed to a strong immune system, a strong digestion, and even a healthy physical external body. So Jing makes up the hair, the skin, the nails. It makes up a lot of the external part of the body. And so typically we associate good health really with strong prenatal Jing. And that leads us to our next point, which is that there's two different types of Jing. There's yin and yang Jing. There's also prenatal and postnatal Jing. And really, prenatal Jing is the idea that we have a sort of inherited or hereditary energy. And it's really our immune system that's passed along the health and functioning of our organs, and even our microbiome you could probably attribute to this sort of prenatal Jing. It's the energy that we get from our parents. And so really you start to understand that really Jing is specific to the biological body. Our prenatal Jing is the byproduct of our parents' Jing. So it's the health of their organs, their immune systems, their microbiome, and their bodies. And our Jing is the byproduct of their bodies, which is a byproduct of their parents' bodies. And ultimately, all Jing is a byproduct of Mother Nature's Qi energy. So our body is a piece of the earth, and we get our Jing from Mother Nature, and of course through our ancestors. However, there's also the concept of postnatal Jing. And postnatal Jing is Jing energy that can be cultivated through our lifestyles. So just as in epigenetics, we are not sort of predisposed to a certain genetic destiny, in Chinese medicine, through the art of Taoism, through Tonic alchemy, we can cultivate an abundance of Qi and Shen and Yin Jing or postnatal Jing that can actually help replenish this prenatal Jing, and in other words, create a stronger immune system and a healthier body. So now some people say that there's not a way to replenish your Jing, which becomes depleted naturally throughout living, basically. Our bodies do have a certain expiration date. The body is a mortal being. Our spirits are what are immortal. However, the body does have a certain expiration date, a certain time that it will sort of return to the cycle of life. Being a biological being, being a part of Mother Nature, it is only natural that our bodies will go through this life and death cycle. However, with that being said, there are specific activities that can accelerate the diminish or the depletion of Jing, just as much as there are things that we can do to help preserve and protect our Jing to have longevity. And like I said earlier, there are some people that have the consideration that you can't replenish Jing and that once it's spent, there's no turning back. However, this is not true at all. Because if we look at the concept of postnatal Jing, we find that we can cultivate more Jing. And we do so by, one, stopping the leakage of our prenatal Jing. So finding the causative factors that are basically draining our essence, draining that Jing energy, and stopping the unnecessary drainage of this energy. But we can also cultivate a lot of daily Qi energy that can basically be stored as Jing energy once we collect a reserve of it. And that leads us to a very important concept, which is that Jing can be restored. However, like I said, there are things that drain Jing. And therefore, the most important thing that we can do to replenish Jing is to stop what is called a Jing leakage, which is really just unhealthy activities, stress, poor diet, lack of movement, too much work, lack of sleep, and other unhealthy activities that basically diminish our body's energy. So then the first step to restoring or replenishing our Jing is finding out what's causing our Jing to become depleted in the first place. Now this specifically might require a very personalized evaluation. Stress is a very unique and individualized thing. It can be financial stress, it could be a relationship stress. For some people, their diet is a source of stress, or exercise, or sleep. So the thing that you're going to want to do is take a very personalized look at your life and how you're living, what sort of activities and habits you have that could be causing stress and draining or depleting your Jing. Like I said, the obvious places to look are going to be the psychological and emotional stress, relationship stress, financial stress, societal stress, different pressures from your environment. Of course, that could be chemical stress from the environment around you. It could be chemical or nutritional stress in your diet. It could be exercise stress, too much, overworking, not enough play, not enough sleep. These are just very obvious sources of stress that you could look into. There could also be an underlying infection or a long-standing chronic disease that wasn't addressed that could be depleting your body's Jing and putting a great burden on your immune system. So these are some common Jing leakages that you could take a look at and then take proactive steps in patching up those leakages. However, there's also very potent Jing herbs that you can utilize to replenish this Jing energy once these Jing leakages have been identified and addressed. So once you've addressed your primary Jing leakages and you've taken proactive steps to reverse those, I highly suggest utilizing a few tonic herbs, specifically Jing tonic herbs, but you could also utilize a few adaptogen Qi tonics to help build up your immunity. Now, one of the first herbs I recommend for anybody who has a Jing deficiency would be gynostemma, which is the #1 adaptogen on the planet, has the highest amount of plant saponins over all other plants on the planet, including ginseng. Now, more specifically than that, gynostemma is a great immunomodulator. It actually helps your immune system secrete more natural killer cell and T helper cells and B helper cells. So it could help address any underlying infections or chronic systemic infections that could be depleting your Jing. Additionally, gynostemma is very unique in its ability to actually suppress the universal inflammatory molecule known as nuclear factor kappa B, which is the #1 molecule that's causing inflammation on a cellular level. So this is a very potent adaptogen Qi tonic that can help prevent any sort of Jing leakage and also help build up the body's immunity and resilience so that way you can start adding back or replenishing that Jing reserve. There's 3 other really great specific Jing tonic herbs that can help protect your Jing energy but also replenish it. The first one is cordyceps. Cordyceps is a parasitical fungus mushroom. It is specifically great for replenishing the Jing in the kidney system. It helps the body produce more ATP, which is your body's cellular energy. So instead of exhausting your adrenal glands by stimulating them, it's actually going to help your cells and your mitochondria produce more energy, which is really great for anybody with a Jing deficiency, as these people usually have weak adrenal systems and therefore experience chronic fatigue. So if you're somebody with adrenal fatigue, you likely have some sort of Jing deficiency and a weak kidney organ system, and utilizing cordyceps is a really great way to add back to that Jing store restore, support the kidney system, and produce more ATP so your body's more oxygenized and more energized on a cellular level. There's two other really fantastic yin-jing tonics that help restore the yin-jing energy that is the foundation of Jing energy and all yang energy in the body. And those are going to be Romania and Hoshiwu. And while these herbs have their differences, they're both yin-jing tonics, which are excellent for restoring the depletion of yin-jing energy in the kidney system, making them really great for revitalizing and restoring the energy to the kidney and adrenal system, which again often become exhausted when Jing is depleted. So these are two primary herbs that anybody with a Jing deficiency or adrenal exhaustion or chronic fatigue syndrome should be taking on a regular basis. Last but not least, I highly recommend the supplementation of schizandra berry extract. This is a 3-treasure herb that helps promote and protect the Jing, Qi, and Shen energy. The special thing about schizandra is that it targets all 5 organ systems and all 12 meridian channels. It's specifically great at helping all the organ systems replenish and store Jing energy. So this is a really great herb for anyone to take, especially people with a Jing deficiency. So these are just a few of the best herbs to take if you're trying to replenish your Jing energy, overcome chronic fatigue syndrome, stress, disease, or prolonged injury, or anything that has drained your sort of essence energy, this Jing energy. You can watch other videos on these specific herbs in greater detail here on the channel. So if you're interested in learning more about any one of these herbs I just mentioned, just give a quick search on the channel and you'll be able to find a detailed video on those herbs. However, before we close here, I just want to talk about a few other lifestyle things you can do to actually replenish and protect your Jing energy. So one of the best things that you can do, and I often talk about here in these videos, is build your tolerance to stress and gain a certain mastery over your mind and emotions. In Chinese medicine, Jing and Qi are ruled by Shen. And Shen is our spiritual energy. And the way that I usually explain this to people is that we, the spirit, we are the source, the creation of all of our energy. So we are actually not energy itself, we are the creator or source of energy. So one of the best things that we can do if we want to ultimately gain total control and mastery over our body to achieve a great state of balance and health is start to become more aware of our thoughts and our emotions, because our thoughts and our emotions are going to create a motion in the body. Thoughts create emotions, and emotions create motion. In Chinese medicine, it's very well known that certain negative emotions like anger, frustration, grief, apathy, fear, these emotions greatly diminish the functioning of our primary organs, they impede the flow of qi, and they result in stagnation and disease in the body. And the thing is that our thoughts and our emotions are happening all the time, so they have the most profound effect on our physiology at any given moment. In fact, scientific study has shown that our thoughts, our considerations, are more potent in their ability to affect the hormonal system than injecting synthetic hormones themselves. So one thing that we know from science is that our hormones are actually a chemical expression of our consciousness. So hormones are nothing more than little chemical messengers of our own thoughts and emotions. And because of the fact that our minds are usually going at any time during the day, this is going to fire many different hormonal secretions, thousands, hundreds of times throughout the day. Whereas, we only eat a couple times a day, we exercise maybe once, we sleep, for an 8-hour period. These things have primary effects on our biology. However, our thoughts and emotions are senior to any of these mechanics. So I highly recommend looking into some way to gain mastery over your thoughts and emotions. Seek out a spiritual guide, some sort of mentor, some sort of teacher. At the very least, take up meditation, yoga, qigong, tai chi. Find some way, even if it's journaling on a daily basis, to gain some sort of distance between your thoughts and your reactions. And this will have the most profound, long-lasting effect on your overall health, and it will especially help diminish the #1 cause of Jing depletion, which is stress, psychological, mental, or emotional stress. So some other things that you could do to help improve your Jing energy, and more specifically avoid the depletion or the leakage of Jing, would be to cultivate more daily Qi energy. In TCM, Jing is ruled by Qi. So as I said earlier in this video, if you can cultivate a lot of Qi on a daily basis, those leftover Qi reserves will be stored into your sort of Jing battery pack of energy. So the best way to understand this in simple terms is that really healthy people eat really fantastic diets, they do healthy things like move on a daily basis, go to bed early, have more balanced emotions, they're drinking water, they're taking herbs, the people that we consider healthy people, they're really just cultivating a lot of qi on a daily basis, and this qi in abundance can eventually turn into Jing, and this is sort of the alchemy of Chinese medicine and Taoism. So do things on a daily basis that you would consider to be healthy, eat a right diet, take tonic herbs, drink hydrating, mineralized spring water, get healthy amounts of exercise, spend time outdoors, get adequate sunlight, go to sleep at a regular time, engage in healthy relationships, take proactive steps to cultivate a lot of qi in your life, and that will eventually leak over into your Jing reserves and build your overall immunity. So these are just a few very simple tips on replenishing your Jing, more importantly, helping you become aware and look at potential Jing leakages, and taking proactive steps in disengaging from harmful, unhealthy activities, so that way you can preserve and protect your very precious body energy known as your Jing energy. So if you have liked this video and you found it helpful, definitely give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, head to our Instagram at VitaJing Herbs where we do weekly free tonic herb giveaways, and for purchasing your very own high quality potent tonic herbs, you can visit our shop by clicking the link below.